If you want to learn to speak Russian, this is the best way to do it. In fact, this is the fastest way to learn to speak any language. All right? So pay attention. These sentences here are my language islands. You can see that it's a pretty massive list, thousands of sentences. These are all sentences I've been accumulating throughout the years. I've been writing about, well, pretty much everything, anything and everything I want to be able to say in the language. I've got a massive list of sentences that I've written and translated into all the languages I want to be able to say. Normally, I'm talking about things, different things. For example, here it's well, a morning routine, current morning routine. I probably have some other morning routine earlier in the text because I've been writing this. I've been uh, adding more and more sentences to this list for years. So yeah, I've got different versions of pretty much the same thing. So I've I've got a few 100 sentences about working out or whatever earlier in the text, and then later on, a couple of years later, I wrote more because I changed the way I worked out. And for example, all habits, things I like, things I do, things I don't do anymore, things like that. So you have to, and also where you live, where you, uh, yeah, who you hang out with. There's always a lot to talk about, right? So you need to learn a lot of sentences. So my advice, because I used to tell people to write around 1,000 sentences, and most people struggle to write more than 100. Uh, Unless you write for a living, writing about yourself is pretty. It takes effort. You have to think about it. What do I want to talk about? So what I recommend now, and 1,000 sentences is good. If you have 1,000 good sentences and you learn them, you translate them, and you learn them well, you'll be able to speak a lot. But ideally, you'd have way more than that. So what I recommend you do, we've got the technology. It's amazing how much how how easy technology has made things these days. So you take any uh, speech to text software. There's free software out there. I use an app called Speech Notes. I've made some tutorials on how to use it, and you talk to it for a while, or you can even record yourself with it. That you can get a transcript of your own conversations with it. If you're talking to someone, of course, you should ask permission first because it's not okay and probably not also not legal to do that. So ask permission first, or you could simply just put the thing on and talk to it for 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day. You go on like to go for a walk, to take your phone, and you put the thingy on and you talk to it as if you were talking to someone else, and you talk about whatever's in your mind that day, or whatever you did, or what your plans are, or whatever you talk about normally. You talk to it, and you get a massive wall of text there. That's or messy. There's no punctuation or anything. But then you can simply paste it on ChatGPT and get an ordered list like this, and then you get a translation here with Google Translate code. So now we've got the bilingual text, and every day you keep talking to the speech to text software, and you keep adding more and more sentences. Now, how do we learn them? Well, you will need. We used speech to text. Now you will need text to speech. So you'll take this, paste it in some text to speech software, and create a pretty robotic sounding audio file with all of this that you listen to over and over again. Just play it on your phone, earphones, on your car, whatever. Just listen to it again and again and again. It's your own lines, things you said, translated into the language you're learning, Russian in this case, and you listen to it over and over again. And that already will help. But that's not enough. When input is good, the more you listen, the better, the more you read, the better, blah, blah, blah. But if you don't actively practice speaking the language, you will not be fluent anytime soon. So what we'll do is play the audio file, and with this in front of you, shadow it. So you listen into it and you say it at the same time. You repeat simultaneously. Yeah. So and you can just get it closer so you can read both. You should be able to read both at the same time if you can read fast enough. And you read and listen and say it aloud at the same time. Я очень хорошо сплю. Если вы хорошо спите, вам не придется спать. Yeah, it's very hard to do fast. But if you listen to it, it'll make you say it faster. If it's too difficult, you can also copy it in different columns and so that each sentence is repeated twice, 3 times, 5 times, or as many times as necessary. And you do thousands and thousands and thousands of reps of this. Just sit down in front of this and repeat sentence after sentence aloud, shadowing. Boring, I know, but extremely effective. And because they're your own sentences, you're not practicing some nonsense. The cat is on the table, this and that. The elephant eats the banana and all that Duolingo nonsense. You're learning sentences that you have said before so that you will want to be able to say them. All of them. All of them are useful. And with a few hundred sentences of this, you'll be able to have basic conversation. With over 1,000, if you've learned it properly, you'll be able to speak relatively well. It's this simple. Yeah. So you shadow them, you listen to them a lot, and with this in front of you, you shadow them. You listen and repeat over and over and over again, as many reps as necessary. The last thing would be active recall. And you can only do this after a lot of shadowing because it's very difficult. But active recall is something that you can do uh, on your own here or use an Anki as well. Basically, it's speaking practice you can do on your own. You look at the sentences in English or whatever your target language, native language is, sorry, and you try to translate it into Russian in this case. And you try to say it and sleep very well. Я очень хорошо сплю. Очень хорошо сплю. And it's very difficult, and you make a lot of mistakes because it's one thing to be able to say something and a sentence that's approximately correct and they understand you, and it's a very different one to say that sentence using like the right word or all the right grammar, all the right conjugations. All of that is very, very difficult. So it's a very hard exercise, but it's extremely effective in order to make you speak much better. It helps you think in the language way more than talking to people. Of course, if you can just talk to people as well, practice. In real life practice is good, but real life practice, conversation mostly, we tend to talk about the same things over and over. So, and we tend to use the same words and use what we already know and what we are comfortable with. So this will help you way more. Uh, yeah, talk to people, but do this as well so that you're much better prepared when you talk to people. This forces you to use vocabulary that you wouldn't normally use, and that way you learn sentence structures, new words, a lot of stuff, and you learn it actively. You learn to use it, not just understand it, right? So yeah, you translate into the language, you read it. I do a lot of reading. Я очень много читаю. Yeah, много читаю. Okay. And you keep doing this as well as listening and shadowing the sentences and writing more sentences for the list and translating them, and you learn more and more and more sentences. So if you start small with a few hundred sentences the first week, you learn them pretty easily. And then you keep adding more and more and more until you learn several thousand. And basically, you just have to, and if you have the chance to talk to people in real life, you will very quickly figure out what you can say and what you can't say. So when you get back home, if there were things that you weren't able to say, you can simply prepare more sentences for that for next time, right? And this is how you learn a language fast. Learn to have good communication in any language. This is the best way.